The first time she whispered it, I thought I had imagined it, the kind of fragile, impossible sentence that only exists in dreams or regrets. But I hadn't. I heard it clearly, carried softly in the wind between the hum of a broken engine and the quiet ache of two lonely souls standing too close to something they could never have. Asterisk, if you believe in kindness. Second chances, and the kind of love that comes when you least expect it. Take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be felt, not just heard. Asterisk, it was late afternoon in a quiet suburb just outside Denver, Colorado, where the sky stretched endlessly and the roads felt like they carried more memories than cars. I had been fixing cars for nearly 15 years, ever since life pushed me out of college and into survival. My hands were always stained with grease, my back often aching. But it was honest work. It kept my mind busy, which was the only way I knew how to outrun the past. Her name was Claire. She had called me earlier that morning. Her voice calm but tired, asking if I could come take a look at her car that had broken down in her driveway. It was nothing unusual, people called me all the time, but something about her tone lingered in my mind longer than it should have. Maybe it was the quiet sadness tucked between her words. Or maybe I was just getting too good at recognizing loneliness in others because I carried so much of it myself. Asterisk, when I arrived. She was standing by the car, arms folded against the chilly breeze, her hair loosely tied back. She wasn't the kind of woman who tried too hard to impress, but there was something effortlessly beautiful about her. Something real. She greeted me with a small smile, the kind people wear when they've forgotten how to smile fully. Asterisk, I gotta work quickly, lifting the hood and diving into the familiar world of wires and metal. Fixing cars had always been easier than fixing life. Machines made sense. People didn't. Asterisk, she stayed nearby, watching quietly at first, then eventually offering me a cup of coffee. I accepted, more for the warmth than anything else, and for a while we stood there in a comfortable silence that felt surprisingly natural. Asterisk, as I worked. She began to talk, not all at once, not like someone spilling everything, but slowly, piece by piece. Like someone testing whether it was safe to be heard. She spoke about how she had moved here 2 years ago after her husband passed away unexpectedly. A heart condition, she said, one they didn't even know he had. One day he was there laughing in the kitchen, and the next everything was gone. Asterisk, I didn't interrupt, I just listened. Asterisk, she told me about the quiet house, about how the walls seemed louder now, about how even the simplest things like making dinner felt heavier when there was no one to share them with. And as she spoke, I realized something uncomfortable, but undeniably understood her, because I had lost someone too, not to death, but to life. 2 mistakes, 2 choices I couldn't undo. Asterisk, her name had been Rachel, had been young, reckless, and convinced we had all the time in the world. But time doesn't wait for anyone, and neither did she. I had been too focused on chasing stability, on building something from nothing, and in the process, I lost the person who mattered most. By the time I realized it, she was already gone, building a life somewhere else. Asterisk, that kind of loss doesn't leave scars you can see. It leaves silence. Asterisk, Claire's voice pulled me back to the present. She laughed softly at something she had said, but it didn't reach her eyes. And in that moment, standing beside her car with the sun beginning to dip below the horizon, I felt something shift inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. Connection. The repair took longer than expected. Not because it was complicated, but because neither of us seemed in a hurry to end the moment. The conversation drifted between past and present, pain, and small moments of hope. It felt strangely easy, like we had known each other longer than one. Just a few hours. Asterisk, at one point, she sat down on the curb, watching me as I tightened the last bolt. There was a softness in her expression, something vulnerable, something unspoken. And then it happened. So quietly I almost missed it. Asterisk, I wish you were mine, she whispered. Asterisk, for a second, the world seemed to pause. Distant sound of passing. Cars faded, The breeze stilled, and all I could hear was the echo of those words. I looked up at her. She hadn't meant for me to hear it. I could see it in the way her eyes widened slightly, the way she quickly looked away as if trying to pull the words back into herself. But it was too late. Asterisk, I felt my chest tighten. Not with fear, but with something deeper. Something honest. Asterisk, I wish that too, I said before I could stop myself. Asterisk, the words hung between us. Fragile and dangerous. Asterisk, because the truth was, it wasn't. That simple, life rarely is. Claire wasn't just a woman with a broken car. She was someone still grieving, still learning how to exist in a world that had taken too much from her. And I wasn't just a mechanic passing through. I was a man carrying regrets, afraid of repeating the same mistakes, afraid of getting close, only to lose it all again. We both knew it. That was the challenge. Asterisk. Not the feelings, but what to do with them. Asterisk, in the days that followed, I found myself thinking about her more than I should have. Every call I received, every car I fixed, every quiet moment, it all seemed to circle back to her. And when she called again a week later, saying the car was making a strange noise, I knew it wasn't just about the car. Asterisk, when I arrived, the atmosphere was different. Asterisk, not awkward, not distant, just aware. Asterisk, we both knew what had been said. What? Had been felt, but instead of running from it, we leaned into the honesty of it. We talked more openly this time, about fear, about timing, about how sometimes life brings people together, not when it's easy, but when it's necessary. She admitted. She was scared of opening her heart again, scared of losing someone else, and I admitted I was scared. Too scared of failing again, of not being enough. But somewhere in that shared vulnerability, something began to heal. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough. We started small. Coffee on the porch, walks in the evening, conversations that stretched longer than either of us expected. There were moments of doubt, moments where the past tried to pull us back, but we kept choosing to move forward. Together, it wasn't about replacing what had been lost. It was about creating something new, something real. Months passed, and the seasons began to change. The cold edge of winter softened into the warmth of spring, and with it, something inside both of us began to bloom again. Asterisk, one evening, as we sat watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and orange, she leaned her head gently against my shoulder. There was no rush, no pressure, just a quiet understanding that we had both come a long way to be here. Asterisk, and in that moment, I realized something important. Asterisk, love doesn't always come in grand, perfect moments. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the middle of ordinary days, when you least expect it. Sometimes it comes after loss, after pain. After you've convinced yourself that you're not meant to have it anymore, but it comes, and when it does, it asks only one thing: that you be brave enough to accept it. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't scroll away silently. Like, comment, and share your thoughts, because stories like this live through the people who feel them. Asterisk, and before this story ends. Now, I have a special request for you. Comment below the word hope if you believe that no matter how broken life gets, there is always a chance to start again, because that's what this was. Not just a love story, but a story about second chances, about two people who had every reason to stay guarded, to stay distant, to stay alone, but chose, instead, to take a risk, to believe, to try. Asterisk, and maybe, just maybe, that's what makes all the difference.